Well, he comes back to this country from time to time because he has various commitments with charities, and for that reason, and of course, personally, I commend him coming back to do that because that's what he was always trained to do, and that's what he's very good at. Of course, inevitably, whenever he comes to these shores, he creates a great distraction, and people will be wondering whether there's an ulterior motive or not. And of course, I've noticed also that, any possible coincidence that like it's clashing with another member of the royal family doing something is brought up, or the particular timing of the visit, or all the questions as to whether he's going to meet any of them. Or even as happened yesterday when he was talking to various youngsters, at one point there was some sort of mention of a sibling, and so that meant, woo, we can talk about, Prince William, and he is after all his sibling, and is there a link, is there a connection? And to some extent, I think that's slightly unfair because basically you can always dig one up, and the media are extremely good at doing that. So to give him the benefit of the doubt, I would like to think that he's coming here in order to help a charity, but I suppose there will always be the question as to whether there's an ulterior motive. The royal family has to tread very carefully with Prince Harry for a number of reasons. I mean, it would be in his and everybody else's interests if somehow he could form some sort of personal reconciliation with his father, because, we know even from Prince Harry's book that his father said, "Don't make my last years miserable." And if something happens to the king and Prince Harry has not reconciled with him, then he's going to be bearing, more sort of guilt and remorse and things. And he's got enough on his plate already with the death of his mother and the things that he feels about all that. So, in order for that to happen, he is the one who has to apologize. He is the one who has to give assurances. And it's not for me to speak on his, advise him in any way, but I think he should do it. Having said that, as I said before, he always creates a distraction. So there's absolutely no wish for him to come back and resume royal duties, because if he did so, all that would be happening would be that whenever the king went somewhere, if Prince Harry was somewhere else, all the media attention would be on Prince Harry, would deflect from the good work of the king and the other members of the royal family. So, from a personal view, it would be good if there was some sort of reconciliation, but there can't be more than that. There can't, at any rate, not at the moment. Not for some time, I don't think. As you rightly suggested, the royal family doesn't trust him because he gives out information, things appear in the newspapers, or he might be preparing something else. I suppose the awful truth of the matter is that I suppose the suspicion is that if he comes over here, he is sort of almost re-establishing himself as a member of the royal family. The further he stays away, the less connection he has. I mean, he isn't allowed to go on the balcony anymore because he's not a working member of the royal family. But in the days when he was, right in the middle of it and doing things, he was a very hardworking and successful member of the family, putting in his bit for the United Kingdom, the Commonwealth, and all the things that he does. And, and he was wearing fine uniforms and he looked like a prince. Latterly, of course, he's just a guy in jeans with a backpack on his back, a woolly hat, coming off an aeroplane, or loitering in the background of one of Meghan Markle's cooking sprees. It's very different. So I suppose the danger is that he's re-establishing his identity every time he comes to this country. Well, I thought that Spare was a disaster, but I also think that all the interviews that members of the royal family do, whether they're in the fold or out of the fold, are also a disaster. The less that is said, the better. And of course, again, I think that Spare did him a lot of harm, because I think that some guy, in middle America, like on his farm or something, he reads about Spare. He doesn't like a guy slagging off his father. It's very unattractive. And of course, the book was ghosted by very clever writer J.R. Moringa, who is known to have had a bad relationship with his own father, and ghosted Agassiz book, where the same thing. So you could see what he was going to stress. And Moringa himself said in an article that an autobiography is not the story of your life. It's the story of a series of incidents that will interest the general public. In other words, it's a lot of it's cooked up, and he wrote famous novel called Tender Bar, in which somebody is knocked over in a bar and has all these thoughts as he falls to the ground. And you begin to wonder whether some of the details, well, I know some of the details in Spare were wrong because I reviewed it and I pointed out numerous mistakes which Prince Harry hadn't bothered to inform him about.